Because for too long, the church has operated under the business as usual kind of mentality. What we do, or what we do what we've always done. We never question whether or not it's effective. We never question what we are taught and what we are teaching to see if it actually lines up with Scripture. In the conversation last night in the car, Sherry goes, well, I thought that we go to the heaven and the pearly gates, and when we die and we go up in here and we go to heaven when we die. And I'm like, no. Read Revelation 20 and 20. That's what started it off. I'm like, you need to read Revelation 20 and 21. No, we do not. As a matter of fact, we go to what's the Hebrew in the Hebrew is called Sheol. We go to this place of Sheol, and literally it is a realm of existence. It is a waiting room. With, on one side, you have the waiting room for hell, and on the other side, you have the waiting room for an eternity with God, and there's a divide in the middle. This is straight from the mouth of Jesus. This is a parable, the rich man and Lazarus. You can go find it in the Bible, read it. Great. It will explain what happens after we die very well, as a matter of fact. Okay? And there's other, and that's not the only thing, but there are Old Testament allusions and worldview ideas that allude to this. But she's like, isn't this the case? I'm like, no, actually, we go to Sheol. There's this compartment waiting room. And I read through Revelation 20. I said, it's going to be the end of time when we're all going to stand before the great white throne of judgment. And we are all judged according to our deeds. The word says it right there in Revelation 20, which means what? We're all doomed. If we are judged by our works, we are doomed. But the one saving grace is that being in the Lamb's book of life. If your name is in the book of life, what you do matters, but what you do doesn't matter. If your name is in that book of life. It goes on to describe in chapter 21 the New Jerusalem, which describes the pearly gates that we all kind of have this heavenly mindset. It's not that it's not biblical. They've just taken it and they've twisted it. They've twisted it is what they've done. They've Hollywoodified it, exactly. We've Americanized it. They die and you go to heaven. Yeah. And the scripture says we go to be with Jesus. Well, Jesus is everywhere. Why wouldn't he be there too? I'm just saying, we don't question what we're taught to see if it lines up with scripture. This has, and I need you to hear me, this has nothing to do with the programs we're putting on. If I may be so bold to say, what we offer as programs don't matter. Have programs, don't have programs, doesn't matter. Evaluate them. Are they effective? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? If they're not, cancel them, cut them, get rid of them. This has everything to do with what we are teaching. And we are starting, actually, and I'm kind of almost preaching to the choir here, that we are actually starting to see some of the fruit of this evaluation and this biblical worldview teaching. We're actually starting to see some fruit from that here in Tologa. Some people will latch onto this, other people aren't. We're not going to change that fact. And as a matter of fact, the trend of people rejecting Christianity, rejecting a biblical worldview, rejecting Christ, this is going to actually increase as far as I can tell. I could be wrong, unless God comes with a revival. Whew, Lord, that's entirely possible too. Because what I am seeing in my ministerial circles and among them, as well as people in their congregation, is that there is an awakening going on within the church. Right now it is within the church. It's not outside of the church yet. It very well may get there. But right now it is inside of the church, and people are waking up to the realization that there's a whole lot more to this than what we've been taught. The stats show more of that. The stats show that more don't than do. People are comfortable. People are comfortable right where they're at in their worldview, and they simply don't want to consider anything else. And see, in Genesis, we're going to get to the scripture. I'm not going to read it, but we've been through this part in Joseph several times the last few years. We know the story of Joseph. Joseph, in 39, 40, and 41, Joseph does indeed operate under the assumption of business as usual. You see, business as usual has a bad side, but it has a good side too. You see, because Joseph operated under this business as usual mentality. However, his focus is on simply operating in the position that he's in the culture that he's in. Joseph doesn't bend over to do the things the way the Egyptian culture does. He refuses, as a matter of fact. He doesn't compromise his values for it either. Joseph believes in the Lord's plan, and he continues to blossom in the places where he's put, whether he is a slave, whether he is in prison, or he is the second in command of Egypt. Joseph does the same thing in every place. He believes that God is going to do what he says he's going to do. He operates in the gifts in which he's been given. He does not operate outside of those gifts. And Joseph is faithful in that. That is us, right here, right now. We need to get out of the old style of business as usual mentality. And we need to operate as Joseph did in a business as usual mentality, where we operate within our gifts despite the culture around us, and we look individually, and we reach people one person at a time. One person at a time. That means we evaluate programs. That means we evaluate everything. We have to evaluate everything. Is what we're doing effective, or is it not? Because too many times we get stuck in doing the things the way we've always done them while the world passes us by. We get stuck. Say that again, Erica. Or people leave. Yeah. And that's what we've seen, and not just in this church, but in all churches. There is a generation conspicuously missing. It is the 30-somethings. It is that, what is it? It's the millennial generation. Yeah, it's ours. Yeah, it is. Huh? Well, we're in our 40s, but yes, we're getting older. It happens. Huh? I'm not almost 50. Hannah. Here's the big idea. The state of the church is that most churches are in survival mode, and this is a time for evaluation and developing a biblical worldview. This is a time to evaluate things. I've got 4 things that I'm going to suggest. Number 1, we need to get out of the idea that growing means that our numbers are increasing. Because we have always measured success in the realm of how many butts are in the pews. That is no longer an accurate evaluation on the healthy state of the church. It is not a time for growing of the numbers. In fact, this is a time for growing the faith of the worldview of those we have here. So the actual measuring rod is the faith of the people sitting in the pews. That's the measuring stick. Have people grown in their worldview? Are they growing or are they not growing? Don't be discouraged by a lack of numbers, okay? Because the fact of the matter is that as we continue to go on, Christianity, and we preach a biblical worldview, with people they are not going to accept it. As a matter of fact, it's going to be pushed away because this doesn't line up with the agenda of the culture. It's not popular. It's not comfortable. It's not popular. And we are told that our beliefs are evil. Be encouraged by the things that the Lord is doing within the people here, okay? Be encouraged by the people that are growing here.